Nigeria's general elections are just around the corner, with voting set to take place in just 2 days and some hours. This election will be a crucial moment for the country as Nigerians will head to the polls to elect their leaders at the federal, state and local levels on February 25 and March 11. The stakes are high as Nigeria is the most populous country in Africa and is widely regarded as the regional powerhouse. Now, the election will be a test of Nigeria's democracy and will set the tone for the country's political direction for the next several years. It will also be a closely watched event both nationally and internationally, as many observers are keen to see how the process will unfold and what the outcome will be. You're welcome to the square. I am Keminni Amanor. Joining our gathering now are Razaq Olokoba. He's president of Campaign for Dignity in Governance. A little later, we'll have two or more of our guests join us on this particular discussion. But in the meantime, Razaq, you're welcome to the square.
Thank you very much.
Well, my understanding is we also have Samuel Adeola, who is a political analyst. Many thanks for your time here, Samuel.
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. So, gentlemen, I want us to first start off by looking at how far we have come towards February 25. What are your thoughts about the journey so far, Razaq?
Thank you very much for having me. Good afternoon, listeners at home. Well, I will start with what you have said in your intro, that this is a test to our democracy. It is, in fact, a test. It appears as if it is an approach to our independence. Since 1999 to date, we have had a lot of political and democratic challenges. But the moment we find ourselves today is more peculiar. And that is why it looks a bit different. For instance, the level of political consciousness in the country has increased tremendously. This is the first time we'll be having over 100 million registered voters. It's not by coincidence, but it is the conscious efforts of civil society organizations like our own, INEC, the political parties, all the agencies of government that is responsible for orientation, as well as the resolve of the Nigerian people. So it's indeed a test of our democracy. Every election will have its own challenge. The challenge we have at the moment for Nigeria is a peculiar time where election that is very important to Nigerians. For me, my democracy is more important to me. Alongside it is an economic policy that appears so sensitive that it begins to look at this as a threat to our election and a threat to our democracy.
I see.
That's why I agree with you once again that it is indeed a test to our democracy.
Very well. Indeed. I'll move on to Samuel now. Samuel, we've had the campaign season run for several months now. What has been your interpretation of how the campaign has panned out in Nigeria's political sphere? Samuel, can you hear me? Well, I'm not sure Samuel can hear me. I'll move on to Razaq quickly. Razaq, if you could just take that question for me. Campaigns have been running for months now, winding down tomorrow. And I want to learn from you, what has been your interpretation, your analysis of how the candidates have conducted themselves, how the supporters have conducted themselves throughout this campaign period?
Well, it's not like a game as usual. Candidates before hide under a billion by various of their supporters. But the temperature of the political moment now indicates that we are no longer interested at abuses and bullies by supporters. We are only interested in what can you offer? And what are you bringing on the table for us? All the sectors in Nigeria at the moment have its own challenges. Security challenges, education challenges. If you must know, university just came back to resumption from a long strike. Economy is taking its own toll, and we are just recovering from COVID-19. So, as a candidate, part of their campaign now, they have been compelled to address all those issues rather than before, taking to how violent my political party can be or how abusive I can be. They have been dragged down to issue-based campaign. They have been dragged down to manifestos and programs. And that is good for us. We are setting standard and we are beginning to establish a model for our democracy. That a political party must be identified with an ideology. In the rest of the world, there are things people believe in. Even if you run half of the world, more than half of the world run economy based on free markets and capitalism. There are still disagreements in all these countries in terms of the content of the ideology of the political parties. The Republicans believe that you must do enough in America in securing the life of our people. So they adopted gun licensing. Why Democrats frown at it? The welfare package of Democrats has been thoroughly abused. That is the position of Republican, that you cannot be giving money to people who are able to work and are not working. So this ideology is has shaped their society, and that is what has manifested. Obi has come out with his own manifesto. Tinubu has come out with his own manifesto. Atiku has come out with his own manifesto. Showore has done that. So we are going to see a different pattern of voting, a different pattern of election this time around. Now, it's about the people.
Speaking of difference, I want us to do a comparative as well as retrospective look at the current elections atmosphere in Nigeria. And I'll bring in Samuel at this point. Comparatively, Samuel, how would you say that the current elections season differs from previous years in the country?
Well, if I have to look at it side by side what we have witnessed before, yes, the atmosphere has always been charged because of competitive kind of analysis of the political hegemony. But I want to say that this present home, is more or less a tortuous journey for both the political circles and the masses in general. Number one, what I've seen so far is to say that the political circle, especially the gladiators, have left the so-called ideological idea they needed to sell to Nigerians by attacking themselves. For the major part of the period that the electioneering of campaign allowed for the presidential candidate, instead of telling people exactly what to do, the basic ideology that they can be hold on to and see that this is what they believe, they are busy attacking themselves, busy calling themselves names, and Nigerians are awash with that kind of a thing. But presently, the people's speech of the situation in the country, most especially the policy that was introduced to this election period by the government, as good as the intention is, it has created more tensions in the land than it ought to be. This period in time is supposed to be the time that the citizens should be government, either to consolidate on what the new government, the old government has done, or to deprive itself away from what the old government has done, by bringing to us that which we have not seen before. But unfortunately, that is not what we are seeing. My friend Razaq was talking about manifesto of the political party having come out. Well, going through all the manifestos of all the political gladiators, especially the three gladiators or the three musketeers, as I will call them, they really have brought out things that are beautiful. But unfortunately, there is no way they have been able to tell us how they are going to achieve what they have as a manifesto. Yes, we have had manifestos in the past. There is no time in the crisis of this nation that we have not had manifesto.
I see.
The problem has always been implementation.
And so, Samuel, let's look at the messages each of these top 3 or 4 candidates are putting across. If we start off with the ruling APC's candidate, Bola Tinubu, what exactly is his message that he's putting across?
Fortunately or unfortunately, the message that we have been hearing, so far so good, is how he makes Lagos to be what he is today. It is so disturbing, so to say, from side that believe that democracy is supposed to be a continuous thing. The government of the day is party. Therefore, we've not heard so much about what the party has done and what the government of the day has done, in which has bettered the life of the people, in which he wanted to continue, or perhaps he want to bring a new thing. The same thing is to Atiku Abubakar. Atiku Abubakar has been part of the government since 1999. Regardless of how he wants to, use a plausible deniability to say he left government in 2007, we knew very well that he has always been a continuous appearance in the horizons of presidential candidacy. Therefore, I believe that he has traversed almost all the political parties in Nigeria today just to achieve one goal, to become president. Be that as it may, these are also people that we have not seen or know what they want to do different from what they did in 60 years ago. All these things are not rocket science. And Nigerians, like Razaq said, the awareness of the people is becoming so high. Like Razaq said, we have done a lot from the civil society to let the people know that you own the power. The power is in your hand and in your sovereign. You don't surrender your sovereignty to people because you want to collect certain amount of money. You surrender your sovereignty to the people or to whoever that want to govern you, because the person has what it takes to turn around your situation, to bring about a future for your children. And these are things that have been lacking so far.
Samuel, hold the rest of your thoughts for me. I'll move on to Razaq now. Razaq, you spoke about manifestos earlier, so let's look at the other 2 top candidates, Peter Obi of the Labour Party and Rabiu Kwankwaso of the NNPP. What is it that these 2 candidates are putting across as their message to garner the support they need in order to win the elections come February 25?
Yeah, it's painful that I didn't hear what my colleague has said, but I'll be concerned for the manifesto of Kwankwaso and Peter Obi. If you look at the situation we find ourselves in Nigeria, it's not as if Obasanjo, Jonathan, and Buhari are particularly wicked. That's why Nigerians are not happy with them. No, they did their best. But the problem we have in Nigeria is a structural problem. It's a problem of the institution. And we warned, I'm a supporter of Buhari, but despite that, I warned that if Buhari, I voted for Buhari, that's what I mean. But I warned that if he didn't restructure Nigeria, he may not be able to do well, and may also end up the way Obasanjo and Jonathan ended up. And today, I have been absorbed. And it is in the same vein that any candidate who is having the excitement that there are things that Obasanjo, Jonathan, and Buhari didn't do well, that's trying to do it well, without looking at the political structure, is also wasting his time. So in the manifesto of Obi and Kwankwaso, I do not see all these areas being addressed. For instance, the police institution. We've been canvassing for state police. The current state police institution we have in Nigeria is a mono structure for a country that is in layers. We have 3 political structure in Nigeria: the federal, the state, and the local government. And we have just single structure of police to secure the life of 250 million Nigerians. The result of such decision is what we are witnessing today. The same thing in the economy. There is no guarantee of prosperity for Nigeria if we continue to pull all the resources of the country in the hand of the federal government, devolve power. Buhari is held responsible for everything about us because he's in charge of everything. Economy, security, health sector, education. The moment you devolve power, you have taken a lot of responsibility. So I didn't see Obi's manifesto addressing that. I didn't see Kwankwaso manifesto addressing that. The educational sector, why our children at home every day? The money that is meant for paying the lecturers, conducting research, has been used to pay salary. Salaries of workers that are needless. Salaries of agents that are needless. On education, you have University Commission, Polytechnic Commission, College of Education Commission, Senate Committee on Education, House of Rep Committee on Education, 36 State Committee on Education, 36 Commissioner of Education. Such country cannot offer proper and qualitative education to their children. And that's what we are saying, that all these duplications must be addressed. So I look at the manifesto of all of them. They are still relying on the present structure where to generate power is the sole responsibility of the federal government, whereas the state must have power to generate electricity.
I see.
Really, the state must have power. So I don't see Kwankwaso's manifesto addressing all these structural problems. We are peculiar people, and the political structure of Nigeria must be peculiar. In looking at India, India's population and the African population is almost the same. If they had run a structure that is not befitting for them, they will have had a lot of problems today. The same thing China. The Chinese train system moves 1 billion passengers per day. You look at Japan. Japan is running a peculiar structure. Japan has suffered atomic crisis twice. Hiroshima, Nagasaki, and Fukushima. They have no business prospering at all, but they took a shortcut to development. The first 10 economy in the world today.
So Razaq, I just want to say that you have mentioned really critical sectors of governance. However, when you look at the top issues for the Nigerian voter, it would appear that those things that you have mentioned will not make the top three. So can you blame these candidates for not couching their messages around other issues other than those that are top of mind for the Nigerian people?
What is top of mind in Nigerian people? Can you mention them? Security, economy,
the economy,
corruption. I've mentioned them. You cannot repair your economy with the way the economic policy is structured, where federal government hold all the power of economy in its hand. The federal government we have today is in control of all the resources. We can't prosper like that. 70% of the population of every nation is youth. Federal government cannot create employment for 70%.
Well, so unless I'm misunderstanding you, it would seem that Peter Obi has tackled the issue of economy, who wants the country. And I'm coming to that. He wants the country to move from a consumption one to a production one. He's also talking about corruption, which will hold on, Razaq, which will seem to be what is garnering the young people towards him. That he thinks that the things of the country should benefit the general populace and not just a few people. So it would be unfair to say that these candidates have not spoken about economy or corruption.
No, they have spoken about economies, but the rhetorics of I will fix power, I will do roads, the youth will be given full employment, our rhetorics are normal campaign slogans. But what is that's the theory. In practice, how do we become manufacturers? It's not by pronouncing it.
I see.
The practice of it is that take the power of economy away from federal government. Why is federal government not fix our power sector all this way? It's because federal government create a bogus system and mandatory policy for people who want to have access to license to construct refineries. Whereas there should be a policy where so simple that our state must have their own refineries, and that is the line Obi is also towing, Kwankwa is also towing, Buhari told the same line, Jonathan told the same line, and we kept on saying, see,
I see.
If you want, there must be cottage industries.
I'll come back to you to speak more about. Razaq, I'll come back to you to speak more about the point, about your point, but we've kept Samuel quiet for a long time, so I want to go to Samuel. Samuel, I want us to talk about the APC. When you read about its candidate, Bola Tinubu, it would seem that he's been described a lot as a kingmaker because of his influence in politics. Some have gone to the extent of even describing him as a puppet master. But when you look at the fractured front of the APC at the moment, who do you think is pulling the strings for Tinubu now, as he says that it is his turn? How do you see the fractions that the APC or the cracks within the APC's front right now could impact on Tinubu's performance?
Well, looking at the fact that this party, they are the one in power, they are the one that rules in all the states that are being fractionalized within the circle that is affecting by the policy of the changes. It is obvious that the center cannot hold for that party anymore. Why? Because the interest of self is rising above the interest of the national. The national interest is supposed to be the paramount, ideal for any leader. And when we talk about the national interest has to do with how it affects the masses, not in a way that we will see that the policy is directly not at the masses, but at a particular, a malady in which the government is seeking remedy for, which is the issue of vote buying. When you look at what is going on in APC, though it would have been an extraordinary thing, it would have been something exemplary that we would have taken as an example. Because that is what democracy is supposed to be. That because you belong to a party does not mean the party can take the masses. Because, quote and unquote, the masses are the primary goal in which anyone goes to the government. In Section 14 of Section 2, Paragraph B of the Constitution says the safety, the welfare, and the security of the people, the govern, that the govern must be paramount. So you know that the center of every governance is on the masses. If that has been the case, everybody will applaud their stand. If that has been the case, everybody will see them as you. We have seen issues that related to the masses in the past, in which this government will continue, and the government will continue to toe the lines of whoever that brought about the policy, presidency for that matter. But recently, they differ because of the monetary policy in which affects their pocket directly. It is not because they love the masses. We were in Nigeria when the ASU strike was for 8 months. The governors were there. They did not go to court to challenge the president. Why did you do it? Now, for example, the issues of education is something that we call a concurrent list in the government, in the constitution. The state government has their own educational functionality. They have their own commissioner. Yes, the federal government also has their own university and other parameters of educational parameter that they use. Unfortunately, when there is strike, some of the states, because they belong to a union that encompasses everybody, some of the states also join, in which in the states, the students did not go to school for that 8 months. The government did not do anything. When they talk about subsidy, every government supported subsidy, and yet they did not fight for it. So what's bringing about this rancor among the APC members and the hegemony is because of the self-enlightened interest. Not necessarily because of it, but unfortunately, it's a whirlwind that will blow them no good. Because when you are going against your home, you are going for a war, and you are already divided at home. The Bible even says in the book of Matthew 25 that a house divided against itself cannot stand. So
Samuel, hang on for me. Samuel, hang on for me. I'm struggling to hear you clearly. And so we'll take a break. When we come back, I want us to, you'd complete your point, but I also want us to talk about INEC's preparedness, the likely scenario challenges that it could face going into the elections, and what the likely scenarios of the outcome of the elections could be when we come back. Don't go away. You're welcome back to The Square. My name is Keminni Amanor. Today we are continuing our coverage of Nigeria 2023 elections coming off on February 25 and on March 11. So if you think about it, we have about 2 days and some hours to go for the election, the voting period to begin in Nigeria. Still with me, Adeola Samuel, who's a political analyst based in Lagos, Nigeria. We also have Razaq Olokoba, who is president for Campaign for Dignity in Governance. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your patience. Before we continue our conversation on preparedness, let's take a look at some Nigerians that we spoke to on their expectations about the elections.
So much expectation because I want to see a free, fair, credible election. I want to see an election where it's all inclusive and the voices of the masses are heard, where our voices are heard through the democratic system, through the ballot system to say. And I want to see the beavers, the match that beavers is going to do, because this is the first time it's used on a national scale. So I want to see how the usage of the beavers will pan out. And also I want to see a new Nigeria emerge after February 25th of February, that's this Saturday. But I have fears. I have fears that our youth might still, themselves to be used of these politicians to cause chaos among. I have fears that our vote might not really count. I have fears that the system might be hijacked. I have fears that a whole lot might happen on Saturday. It's tension. My heart is panting. I feel tensed already. But then the assurance and reassurance of the electoral umpire, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, over their readiness to conduct a free, fair election reassures my heart and gives me that boldness to expect and to be optimistic that a new Nigeria is possible through the democratic process. The ballot on Saturday is going to say a whole lot.
I would summarize my expectations into two, and I'll be brief as soon as possible. Number one, primary on my list is what I look forward to: a credible leaders in all sphere of our governance. Anyway, from the grassroots to presidency, credible leaders that are trustworthy, that would have the interest of masses in mind, and that protect the interest of the citizens of this great nation, because I sincerely believe in this country. Number two, my expectation is that I look forward to a each-free franchise exercise, void of violence, void of post-election issues and everything. I mean, I look forward to an election that will be free and fair and also peaceful, and I believe it can happen. And as for my fear is that, opposition parties should accept their fate. Whoever is defeated, regardless the acclaimed party, they should accept their fate and they should allow peace to reign. There shouldn't be violence after election. Everything should go on well, because it's still one Nigeria, and I believe that we would indeed have a credible, a peaceful, and a fair election.
I expect that the 2023 presidential election and elections afterwards will be an election devoid of fear, intimidation, an election where there's an increased voter turnout, an election that becomes the light and epitome for citation of a free and fair, proper elections in the history of Nigeria, in the history of African elections, and even globally, where Nigeria becomes a positive light for the growth and emergence of democratic culture and democracy. That is the kind of election that I anticipate.
For this coming election, I have a lot of expectations that this will be the decider of how Nigeria will move from the glooming state to a shimmering state, so that our glory can begin to shine. I won't be voting because INEC refused to print my voter's card. I transferred from my former polling unit to a new polling unit, even though I was able to assist the INEC officials to register about 100 plus people in my community. Fortunately, other people got theirs, but I didn't get mine. My dad will be voting, my siblings will be voting, and we just hope for the best. And we pray that there won't be any bloodshed.
Those are the expectations of some Nigerians regarding the 2023 elections. Razaq and Samuel are still here with us on the square. I'll start off with you, Razaq. You heard them, their expectations, their fears.
I didn't hear them.
I apologize. They are expecting a free and fair election. Some are also in fear of the fact that, you know, the beavers machines may fail them on election day, and others are also concerned about security. And then there are there's one person who did not get their PVC at all, and that's just a summary of what they have said. But my actual question to you is, INEC has assured us of its preparedness. INEC says that its beavers will work because it's been tested, it's been piloted. What are the likely scenarios of challenges that could pose an obstacle for INEC in delivering, you know, the expectations of Nigeria regarding the elections?
Well, can I tell you something? The best way to approach this issue is to first think about our country. The whole of Africa is in disarray. Partly because we are not organized. And secondly, because external factors want us to remain the way we are. It's no longer an excuse after 60 years and 70 years of independence. But it's part of our problem. Anything that must make our country work as African people must be pursued. This whole notion of fear for election every 4 years is meant to look as if we are toddlers politically. There is no election that doesn't come with its own challenge. In the past, there were challenges of do or die affair. This election must. This time it might be transition between ideology of violence to ideology of issue-based election. But election will hold. What INEC is doing is not an error-free process. Life itself comes with a lot of error. Today, I've been at the press briefing today. I made the error possible. I was arguing. I said, that was what you said. So that's me. Not to talk of INEC that has to address the demand of over 100 million Nigerians. So what we should be doing more is of support for INEC. No perfection anywhere. I know what I did. If you see any mark on my body, it's a mark sustained from injuries of our days in the trenches fighting for the entrenchment of democracy. If you look at my left eye, it has a bit of impairment that I can't see very well with it again. It's during the fight for democracy. Gunshot wound on my back, machetes wound. So my democracy is important to me. I will do everything to make sure this election holds. I've done advocacy, we have run orientation, and I want Nigerians not to lose focus of that. Look at what is happening in Ukraine today. Peace must reign. Ukraine is just 43 million. Nigeria is 7th most populated country in the world. There must be no humanitarian crisis in Nigeria that the world will not be able to contain us.
Right.
And the solution to it is for democracy to keep thriving. INEC should do their job. The federal government should address the currency swap very well, in order not to hinder the election. Political parties must continue to run issue-based election. And for the people, we are going to be the greatest beneficiary of all of this.
Very well. Samuel, what are the lessons that you hope both voters and the elections management body, INEC, has learned from previous elections when it comes to election disputes on the D-Day? Hello, Samuel, can you hear me? Samuel, I think we lost Samuel there. Samuel, can you hear me? I'll say the question again. I'm asking, what are the lessons that you hope that the elections management body, INEC, has learned from past elections as far as handling the elections are concerned, and then also what do you hope the voters and supporters of whichever political party or whoever candidate they support have learned regarding election disputes on the D-Day? You are muted.
What I have seen so far, so good.
We can hear you now. We can hear you.
Yes. Is what the elections umpire has done in those elections, in the separate elections like in the Ekiti or Osun State elections, so far so good. The deployment of technologies has reduced drastically, if not holistically, the issue of thuggery, the issue. It has so much reduced that area of our political hemisphere to the point that anybody can now go to the polling unit and expected to vote without molestation, except if that molestation is not going to be centered on stealing the ballot boxes, but total disruptions of the process. But it is about stealing the ballot boxes we have been witnessing in the past, that has become things of the past. So far, so good with what I witnessed and as an accredited observer of INEC in the last two separate elections by Ekiti State and Osun State. And you can see the outcome of it going to court by those aggrieved contestants. That it has always been that the court is throwing that line that every other thing that they could see, electoral acts has been followed. That is the lesson I believe that they have learned. Another lesson I believe they have learned is an activity going to prevent apathy. Over time, like Razaq said the other time, this should be about the first time we will have over 100 million voters registered. Before we have had up to 70, 71, 72, thereabout. In 2015 it was 70, in 2019 it was around 75. And going by the outcome of the election, you will see that apathy is open to all. When you have about 70 or 75 registered members, and you end up having about 30 or above a little 30 million voters, you can see that the remnant is more than the voters that comes out. That is apathy. And so I believe they have done enough orientation in collaboration with some of us in the civil society to talk about the issue of apathy. And I also believe that the voters also have learned their lesson to know that when they fold their hands to allow anybody to be elected to represent them, that person, regardless of his foolishness, will be the one to make the law that they will obey. So therefore, the understanding has come up now, and they have been wired up to be part and parcel of the electoral process of this time. You can see that in the registrations of voters cards, in which has increased tremendously.
Very well.
Of youth coming to take part in the registration of votes, they have also increased. So I believe that they are all aware of this time to be part and parcel of that which would determine their destiny.
I see.
And at the end of the day, what I noticed that there will not be any violence during election. But I want to believe that the people also will be magnanimous in victory, and also they will also be able to absorb the failures of their not winning by allowing whoever that wins to go. So there will not be any problem after the election.
I see. Razaq, you have the last word on our discussion today. What role do you think that the domestic and international observers should be playing in these very critical elections for Nigeria?
Well, I'm one of the accredited observers for the election, and we have always played a very selfless role. We will make sure that we are just and we are objective. We will ensure that no incident escapes our view, and we will do justice to whatever information is at our disposal. We will write our report to INEC. We will make sure that we also send our report to all international agencies that loves democracy and global peace. And we will continue to encourage Nigerians before election, during, and after election to ensure that they conduct themselves in a peaceful and perfect manner, so that we can have a sustained democracy in our country.
Indeed. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time here on The Square.
It's a pleasure being with you. Thank you very much for having me.
Indeed. Razaq, Olokoba, yes, and Adeola Samuel joined us as we discussed Nigeria's elections as part of our continuing coverage on Ballot Nigeria 2023. Now, tomorrow, which is Thursday, we will continue the discussions on Nigeria's 2023 elections. This time, we will consider the diaspora. We will also consider the labor unions, whom we haven't seen a lot in this 2023 elections. We'll find out why. You want to join us again, same time here on News Central for that discussion. But remember that this channel, News Central Television, will bring you minute-by-minute updates on the elections, starting eve of the election through to Sunday night, when we hear the results of the outcome of the February 25 elections. And I hope to see you there. Our reporters will be scattered around the country for that. My name is Keminni Amanor, and this has been The Square. Bye-bye.